Welcome, everyone. My name is Darren Clayton, and this is Beatrice, my partner. We have a very special hot fireside chat to share with you tonight. This is the 19th of June, 2020. And in this time of plandemic, we thought a new topic that is of interest to all human beings would be a nice change of pace for our fireside chats tonight. We have two very special guests with us tonight who are two of the world's authorities on our special topic. And that topic is Tantra and Sexual Alchemy. So I want to welcome everyone to this call and hand it over to my diosa hermosa, my beautiful goddess in English, to facilitate this call. I'll go ahead and let you introduce our two special speakers.
Okay, thank you, Darren. And I am so happy to be here with you with really two unique beings of this planet that are light beings and really are here to help us and support us to grow in our lives in many, many, many ways. So welcome, Master Del Pe, and welcome, Becca Tzigany. We are so happy to have you here.
It's wonderful.
Thank you very much. We're very happy, delighted, and I'm so happy that I'll be involved in this talk because we can humbly contribute whatever we have learned in life.
And Master Del Pe, I'd just like to say it's a pleasure to meet you. We are meeting the first time right now.
Yes,
and,
yes.
I've been following your work for some years through Beatrice, and I really honor you for the things you figured out and what you're doing in the world.
Thank you. And I also saw your books about Tantra, and they're very illustrated well and very artistic. So I think it's the artwork there is unsurpassed. So I appreciate that you bring it to the world and people would look at the art, not just about the hot sex, but maybe the art aspect to it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so before we go to this amazing call, and also everyone, thank you to be here tonight. This is going to be translated in Spanish, later. But for now, many people that I see is from all over the world, also Ecuadorians and South Americans that speak English. I'm going to do a small introduction. Could be longer, but I'm going to do it short about Becca, and also about Master Del. So here we go. So Becca Tzigany is the author of Venus and Her Lover, Transforming Myth, Sexuality, and Ourselves. It's part of a tantric art project with her artistic partner, James Bertrand. I have here one of the volumes of her book, and I have the other volume of the book. So we have them here. And she has lived in 4 continents. She has traveled worldwide giving workshops of meditation, activism, tantra, breathwork, community collaboration, and ecstatic dance. She is certified by the International Breath Institute as a transformational breathwork facilitator. As a sacred activist, she has organized as the grassroots for the empowerment of women in organic agriculture. Currently, she is living in Ecuador, and she also works as a relationship coach and community mediator. Becca believes that personal transformation is the first step to building a world that is sustainable, just, and beautiful. Joining with another through sexual union can liberate and empower a couple to accomplish it in the world. Becca's favorite slogan is "Pleasure Heals." And if you want to know more about her, you can visit her website, venusandherlover.com. So this is my introduction about you, Becca. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about Master Del Pe. So Master Del Pe, what can I say about you? I'm going to do a short introduction. So Master Del Pe is a modern sage and a life mentor. He's the author of 12 books and an expert on esoteric psychology, esoteric science, spiritual technology, divine alchemy, and has taught the science and the art of sexuality internationally for 20 years. And parallel, unique of his teachings come from the integration of the best of Eastern philosophies with Western knowledge and sexology. He is the author with his wife Rega of the book Sexual Alchemy and Divine Intimacy that Darren was showing you. Also this book about longevity. And I was telling many other books that I have here. He is a teacher and a trainer of martial arts, 12 styles of meditation, 8 types of yoga, and most of all, energy science. He's a he's a world expert and founder of advanced energy healing modality called Vivo Science, which also includes rapid healing of sexual diseases and dysfunction. So, Master Elpe, you have traveled around 100 countries. You have teach and healed more than 300,000 people all over the world. You have many institutes. Between them are the Be Life Institute for Higher Consciousness, the World Institute for Incurable Diseases, the Wilga Institute, that is for Wisdom Institute of Leadership and Global Advancement. And you have more than 100 workshops online. Also, Master Elpe lives currently in the Philippines, and he has been developing an amazing retreat and healing center called the MVP Village, where serenity, longevity, and enlightenment can find you. As a humanitarian and social transformer, he has found 15 non-profit organizations around the world, and he is known as a visionary who trains his disciples to master life ahead of its time. To know more about Master Elpe, you have to go and visit his website, masterelpe.com. So, okay, this is a long introduction of these amazing authors and visionaries we have here. And now I would like to ask both of you to tell us a little bit more about your life and what is inspiring you to share with the world your vision and your knowledge, your wisdom about sexuality.
Becca.
Please, Becca, go.
Well, we're in critical times, and there's a lot of suffering going on in the world. So that's what inspires me, is to alleviate suffering, but more than that, help people open up to what we all have, this infinite wellspring of energy and power to have happy, peaceful, and pleasurable lives.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really a need on both times. People is so crazy now about the different issues, problems, and the pandemic and all that has soaken and drained the people's consciousness just onto that topic. So, Master Elpe, what can you tell us about your inspiration to share your wisdom about sexual alchemy and divine intimacy?
I think, as Becca said, we are now in the time that we need to spring back and jump over a lot of this pandemic news, COVID-19, geopolitical problems. And I think that's overdone. So this is about time to talk about how to live longer and have fun. You know, having fun is a free thing. It's not always that we have to travel to Hawaii or to the Bahamas to have fun. You know, have fun. You don't have even to move out from your bedroom. If you are now with your partner, you can now smell each other, look at each other's eye, and maybe hold your hands together and think that this is your last moment. Then you can move on to another level of intimacy that probably you have not had before for 20 years. So maybe today, instead of focusing on us, I think we can focus on you. What do you want to know about sexual I would say not sexual activism, but sexual alchemy, sacred sex, maybe divine intimacy, tantra, and maybe to switch off that COVID-19 conditions of the dying process, but to have fun while living longer. I think that's maybe a mission that we can achieve today.
Thank you. So I have many questions people have sent when they knew that you both will be here. And I'm going to just send a few questions that are directed some to Master Elpe, some to Becca, and then maybe the audience wants to send their own questions. And maybe you want to do questions to each other. I'm sure you want to do that too. So I'd like to ask Becca about Yes, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say something. Is the questions were emailed in ahead of time that she's going to ask right now. But if people have questions right now in the current time zone, you can put your questions in the chat window in Zoom, and our moderators will let us know what those are after we get through a few of these questions that came in early. So feel free to enter your questions as the conversation is happening.
Yes, please. And, you know, I don't know, I'm not sure if we can cover everything today, but for sure we'll do our best. If not, we'll have to do, I don't know, a retreat or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I would like to send this to Becca. And I know that your work, Becca, is more about Tantra, but could you explain to people what is Tantra? And I heard also that Tantra is a revolutionary philosophy. What does this mean?
Yes, Tantra is a philosophy. It's a way of approaching. It's a non-dual spiritual devotion and practice. So most, and the reason it's revolutionary, this is why it's very relevant for today, is that it involves you identifying your own energy and your own sovereign beingness, and then be able to join with another under those conditions. And there are, in terms of sacred sexuality, there are esoteric traditions of almost every religion that, you know, is like kept secret. And usually when most people say Tantra, I mean, there's a big branch of Taoist Tantra, but the Hindu and Buddhist versions of Tantra are what most people imagine when you say Tantra. And there was a golden age in India for about 1,000 years when the tantric non-dual philosophy was in effect in many of the kingdoms. And Tantra really challenged this idea of the opposites by saying that everything is sacred. And also the tantric teachings were open to everyone. It didn't matter what caste. And so that really appealed to people. Also, it was, of course, open to women, which in that time, in Hinduism, they were mostly seeing women as like cow herders or, you know, kind of like cattle, not really having that many rights. But Tantra came in and not only said, are women important, but it was like a focus on the goddess. So much to the point of and Shakti power, the feminine force, the creative force in the feminine side of things, was called Shakti. And it was said, the philosophy said, well, we all have, of course, masculine and feminine within us, and the Shakti power can be cultivated. And so it was called Kundalini. And many of the practices were about awakening the Kundalini from the root chakra, coming up through all the chakras. And of course, every time you hit a chakra, you're going to find out your blocks and your shadows and places that need to be healed. So the tantric path is really about transformation. And there was also a focus on longevity and strength. Like as you awaken this power, which everyone has, we can have more energy. And so out of Tantra, the tantric philosophy, came hatha yoga, which was called the yoga of force, meaning, wow, you can really get your power up with yoga. And that include pranayama, breathing, and visualization, and mantra, and mudra. It was an entire system, and it included sexual energy, unlike a lot of religions that call it sinful, or you should only have sex for procreation, or somehow, you know, it was dirty, or, you know, in other words, stay out of your lower chakras. Of course, that's also a way to control people. So if you were a religion or the state and wanted to control people, you would not have them familiar with their sexual energy. And so this awakening Kundalini process became the goal for tantric practitioners. And the focus was on transforming oneself while in the body. You don't have to transcend. I mean, of course you can, because there's meditation practices, but it was saying once you've transcended the body and know the ultimate, the divine, the creative force, then you come into the body and express your divinity in the body. So this was quite revolutionary. I mean, it actually still is revolutionary. So, with the focus on the goddess and the idea that you had to work through your shadows and clear yourself out, there's a goddess Kali, who was the goddess of destruction, transformation, and rebirth. So they didn't mess around. It was really, so the focus on this goddess of feminine power and sexuality became, that's where the Indian revolution for independence began, was in the tantric ashrams of Bengal. And imagine the British, who were like seeing art coming out with the goddess Kali with a belt of heads, severed heads that looked British on them. So, I mean, it was Gandhi who took it across the finish line with his peaceful noncompliance and his ahimsa and, you know, nonviolence. But this independence, because once you know your own energy, no one can dominate you. You're not going to submit to some outer authority. You will only surrender to your own inner divine authority. So that's why in these days, I find it extremely relevant. I don't think any of the stuff going on on the headlines would be happening if people really knew who they were and knew the kind of energy and power that we all have access to.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Ma'am, much of what you said resonates so highly, and I want to just thank you for a couple topics that I feel like we as human species have somewhat forgot when it comes to spiritual identity and sovereignty. But you mentioned in the beginning of your talk right here that it's about individuals finding out who they are, doing their inner work, their spiritual identity, and having their sovereignty established, with the other being doing the same, and those two choosing out of free will to entangle and interact. I feel like today we're kind of programmed to go into contractual, like marriage agreements, to try and find your happiness in the other. And what this is really all about is getting your divinity and your inner peace and your sovereignty established with someone else who has done that. And then the entanglement takes you that relationship of the masculine and feminine coming together to levels beyond most of our wildest imagination that you two are the experts on. So this is going to be a great call. Thank you for sharing that.
Exactly. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Becca. And this is so true. And I would like also, Master Del Pe, please, if you could elaborate on top of that. And
let me just comment on Becca's thing. It's very important for us to not only understand the tantric tradition, but really put a holistic approach to it rather than the more physical part. Because tantric can be a philosophy, it can be a way of life, it can include also your relationship building, your intimacy and this. But in the West, they had always talked about tantric as more of the Kama Sutra component. But the Hindu side, they always put it up as a way of life, as not only marriage, but there's a tantra for the family, how they act, the code of conduct of marriage and relationship. So I think we just to remove the myth and the misconstrued information about Tantra. Tantra is a sacred tradition in India. And in fact, it is so sacred that even kings have mandated that they will be carved in the temples. So if you go to the temples of Nepal, which is Hindustan at that time, and you go to Khajuraho, which is all the temples of the kings, you can see all the sexual positions that are called Kama Sutras, but they are more sacred expressions of the lingam, which is the male part, the penis, which is like a lingam, which is like a stone that they adore for fertility, and also the yoni, which is the vagina shape. So these are in effect, a mandated representation of the holiness and sacredness of sexuality, feminine and masculine. But today in India, they started to look at it as like a negative side. That's why they start to lose the sacredness of the tradition from their own ways of looking at the Western sexology as the reproductive system rather than the sacredness of divine gifts of Tantra. I'm sorry to just patch it. So do you have your questions now?
Yes, Master. Thank you. Yes, and knowing your book, I had the pleasure to translate it in Spanish, and something that was really interesting for me is see how technical were you in the different terms and things that we can do. Like, can you please differentiate for us the applications of sexual alchemy versus sacred sex? And you also talk about divine intimacy. You know, I think they are related, but I think they might be also variations you want to tell us so we can also differentiate.
Oh, I'm sorry, I cannot demonstrate now, but I can talk about it.
Okay.
Okay,
Just tell
that
us, don't
demonstration
worry.
can be in a retreat. But now social distancing, yeah, wow, you cannot demonstrate. You cannot get close to your wife, you know, or your husband. So it's like more of a Star Wars Tantra, your hands together at a distance.
Using the
online.
force. Using the force.
Use the force.
Okay.
Probably there's an increase of sex texting, you know, people are now like more homesick about being isolated. But anyway, I think sex is really having fun. It's not like sex of just coitus or penetration and having climax. I think there's more intricacies to it, as Becca would agree, that there's a ritual behind lovemaking, intimacy, and even post-orgasm. There are a lot of rituals to that. And it sometimes is enjoying the pleasure rather than releasing it. I define in my book Sexual Alchemy as the process by which you alchemize the energy of pleasure from the sexual region and from the seat of fire, as they call it, the Kundalini, which is above the perineum, behind the sex and behind the tailbone. And that seat of life of Kundalini, which is Shakti in Hindu, is the source of fertilization of many processes, either enlightenment, longevity, immortality, or having the power of your presence for magnetic reasons of personality. So when you mix that sex energy with that fire in the belly, which is the Kundalini fire, and you add the divine light to make it more holy, it becomes alchemy. So when you mix the sexual energy, which is coming from arousal, or it's there, if you're a celibate, you can hoard a little bit your energy for some time and have it increase, especially as you grow older, you need to have more conservation. And then you need to stimulate it through arousal, sexual arousal, or you can do it pranayam, kumbhaka with breathing apnea, and you can arouse it until there's a certain level of critical volume that you can bring the divine light and let it touch that so-called sleeping beauty, if you're talking about the Prince Charming or divine light. And this gets married or alchemized, and you can bring it to anywhere you want. You can bring it to your wallet if you want to get richer. You can energize your goals or your plans, or you can energize your heart and then explode with the heart orgasm in your heart when you are having intimacy. Or you can bring it to the crown and explode your consciousness to the soul level, and that's called ecstasy. So you can use sexual alchemy for many processes. So sexual alchemy is the systematic approach to mixing the Kundalini, or the sacred fire, the fire in the belly, as they say, with the sexual energy, which is the conduit by which you can move it, like a water to the mineral, if it's a tree. And then you can direct it to anywhere you want, either to bless your goals, to experience heart orgasm. You can bring it to the heart during lovemaking and explode there instead of just sexual explosion. Or you can bring it to the crown and have ecstasy as you wish, if you are open, if your channel is open. And the process by which you sanctify the sexual energy with divine light and use it for conception of an advanced soul, for example. You can bring more divine light to the sexual alchemy process, and let the divine light guide the conception. To conceive a more advanced soul, you need the sanctification of the divine light from the soul. They call it Atma in yoga. And that is called sacred sex. So when you're not having sex only for the sake of having fun and having procreative process, and not only releasing it and wasting it when you just have orgasm for the sake of having orgasm, that sacred sex is how you can transmute the sexual process into a more holy activity to bring a more advanced being, so that we will have more advanced children that will rule the world, instead of these people who are not at all thinking, who are just emotionally reacting to our processes on earth, who are just putting vaccine as the primary solution rather than preventing diseases. Now, so sacred sex and sexual alchemy are very related, and they're only defined by which are you going to use it for. Now, divine intimacy on the same level is the process by which you can be combining to yourself as couples, connecting your heart, connecting your mind, connecting your sexual energy, and even experiencing total body orgasm. You can experience total orgasm by distributing the pleasure energy to yourself, like circulating it if you want, reverse. Whoever has more power, you can bring it from the man to the woman, or the more advanced is the woman, you can bring it to the woman to the man. Or you can mix it together during orgasm. You can explode into a total body orgasm experience, or you can have total ecstasy for hours or days, depending on how skillful you are in manipulating the substance and naturally allowing it to happen if you want. So the divine intimacy is where you start to connect your soul to soul, mind to mind, heart to heart, and orgasm to orgasm, and evolve as united as possible, and then bring the greatest experience to yourselves that is worth dying for. I think Becca would agree on that.
It's worth living for too.
Yes, dying in the old orgasm. You can go to higher experiences. Yeah, and living for it, that's right.
Ditto to everything you said.
Yes, definitely. You know, this is something that I think everyone is looking for when I talk with my clients and people around, or women or men. I know that there's such an
I think if Donald Trump and Xi Jinping will have this experience, they will forget about trade wars.
For sure.
Yes, indeed. So I wanted to go back to you, Becca, and if you had any, comment about what Master just said, and maybe you want to also tell people, I have a question for you that comes later, that people in their families seem to feel, even they're close because of the quarantine, they seem to be more distant with their couples. So some people were asking, what will be your recommendation maybe for reconnection?
Okay, so in terms of what Master Del Pay said, I would just say, get his book and do the exercises. Because it's, like my partner used to say, you don't have to practice, you get to practice. So yeah, ditto to everything you said. Now, about what's happening to the person who sent in the question about the quarantine. So when I counsel couples, I often have this situation sitting in front of me. So what I would say is begin again. In other words, if you've fallen into a situation where there isn't the spark, you've been maybe cooped up together during the quarantine, and so the little things are getting on your nerves about each other, then stop the normal sex that you might be having or not having, but just make a break and sit down, make an agreement. We would like to begin again. And then you'll get a book like Master Del Pay's book, Sexual Alchemy and Divine Intimacy, that gives you exercises. Or Margot Anand has a great book called The Art of Sexual Ecstasy. And start with exercise number 1, and begin practicing, because first intimacy must be established. I mean, sex is just a mechanical act. But as Master Del Pei just explained very well, there's all these energies that you can manipulate to the benefit of your health, the benefit of your dreams, the benefit of your relationship. But to get there, first you have to trust your partner. So I would suggest starting with make a date, set aside at least 3 hours, and no expectations, but you could start 4 hours, that's even better. I said at least 3 hours. And just start with eye gazing without talking, just looking at each other, connect, like who are you now, right? And there's basic breathing you can do together. And then just begin like you're, you know, a young teenager. How did you start? You started, you know, learning how to touch, right? Or there's different exercises you can do with just even, oh, and if you're alone, start with yourself. Look in the mirror, ask yourself, how do I like, how does my cheek feel? How does my shoulder feel? And wow, look at that. Look at those amazing eyes I have. You know, reacquaint yourself, reacquaint yourself with your partner before you even start with sexual play, because intimacy means into me see. You might need to talk, become vulnerable and say, wow, you know, I've been struggling with something and I'd really like to talk with you about it. And if you have trouble having that kind of conversation with your partner, call in a third party, you know, call in a therapist to help learn nonviolent communication. There's so many techniques, so many tools, so you don't have to suffer alone. There's lots of help, and so that you can reconstruct what trust is, and then go very slowly and deliciously back into sex. A lot of times, because of the focus on orgasm, people are in the race to get there, but the foreplay can start days before. You know, it's like, let's chop vegetables in the kitchen together, and you know, you can start to just touch one another there, or just, it's building intimacy. So it takes a commitment, it takes a little work, but I encourage you, whoever made that question, to, it's worth it, because you know you are a very valuable person and you deserve the best. So by all means, treat yourself to the best by taking the time with your partner to slowly reestablish trust and communication, and then build it on up into sex through different exercises.
Thank you, Becca. Master Del Pei, would you like to comment on that? Add any colored commentary?
I think Becca has the wisdom already. So the younger couples, you need to hear the wisdom of the experts, because I think foreplay has a big play on your even intensity or orgasm and the quality of intimacy. Because if you are busy criticizing each other, you will not have time to have love and the orgasm. So first you have to stop criticizing each other. If you do that, that's already a big checklist. Stop criticizing each other. Stop fault finding. There's nobody perfect. If you were perfect, then you would be married with God. So be careful of also that what you sow, you reap. So if you are not perfect, don't expect perfection. So you have to remember also that you have only the future left for your life. You only have the future. So if you don't spend the future now together in a nice way, you'll be spending the rest of your time criticizing the past. So you need to move off from the past and be aware of what you need now in the moment, as Becca saying that, yeah, it's touching each other alone. Okay, that's a joke. Why don't you tap the butt of the other person from time to time? You forgot that there's a butt, right? Before, when you're girlfriends, boyfriends, you were always tapping the butt. How can you not tap now the butt? Oh, it's full of fat. Okay, still a butt. so you have to be a little bit humorous about it. So second one is the problem of intimacy is because we have put up so much pain to each other's words that you cannot heal bad words for some time, you need to amend and reconcile the fact that you have to apologize one day and say, I was very harsh, I was very stressed, and I was really bad. So I admit that I need to refine my words and more talk about good things than criticizing. So sometimes we need to heal each other. If you do not heal each other, the intimacy just is good for orgasm, not really a long-term connectivity. You need to be engaged, not to be connected only. Connecting is not enough. You need to be engaged. So if you're talking, for example, you need to be in a collaborative listening, not attentive listening. If you're just paying attention and then criticizing what he's not saying again, then it's not good. Collaborative is you are always looking on the good side of what they're saying, the good topics they're saying. You want to connect and engage what they're saying. So I think Becca was right saying that take time, even if you're alone, to touch your skin, to know that you have a face, touch your genitals if you need to, and say, are you still there? Hello. Why are we always looking at the Netflix about Donald Trump and Chinese trade wars? We forgot that we have a body. So stop doing only online things. You have to bring back the attention to yourself, enjoy yourself. Now, if you do not like how you look already, because you look in the mirror and say, oh my God, is this me, you know? Then close your eyes and get into your inner self, your inner feelings, rather than your outer look. If you don't like how you look right now, at least close your eyes. Do not look at yourself. Just feel yourself. So I think there's a lot of wisdom by which Becca was right, that look at the pandemic quarantine as a reward for you. You're always asking, you don't have time. You have 15 days a year vacation. This is like you have 2 weeks or 2 months vacation. Rejoice, enjoy, hallelujah. I have a 2 months vacation. I might not have money, but I have time for yourself. We have always time poverty before. Now you have time abundance. Why can you not use it? This is the time to say that Becca said, let's agree that we will restart, begin again, but let's heal ourselves first. Let's remove all the anger. Let's remove all these bad words from our mind, and let's look at each other as if we are the only person in the island. How can you restart? How can I massage your feet for the first time after 2 years of being married or 10 years of being married? I didn't ever touch your legs. So I think Becca was right at that. And I'm sure Becca would agree that if you're alone, you can still have creative ways of being intimate to yourself. So intimacy, divine intimacy in my own word, is not just about a person having sex. You can be intimate to yourself first as a personality, and then intimate with your soul as you find your soul. So you don't have a reason that, oh my God, I don't have a partner and I'm celibate, and I might grow some tumors in my uterus because I'm not using my sex energy. You have to use that. You can transmute it. You can be intimate to your soul if you don't have anybody else. As they say, it's better to have no relationship than a bad one.
I would also like to add that at this time, many people are going through a hard time. I think we can put the question to ourselves. Am I, for the rest of my life, as Master Del Pei was saying, the future is ahead, am I going to suffer? Do I want to suffer through the rest of my life, or am I going to enjoy it? Because pain and difficulty may not be optional. Pain and difficulty may come to us, but suffering is a choice. We can make a decision whether we're going to suffer or use this as an opportunity for transformation into, you know, my favorite slogan, pleasure heals.
Thank you, Master Del Pei and Rebecca, for both your comments. This is lots of fun. I'm going to ask the next question, and that is, in modern day relationships, the last 100 years, there seems to be a pattern of partners getting together in the honeymoon phase with lots of love and fun. But then as time goes on, problems show up and tragedies show up. And we know the statistics in the US are 50% of marriages end in divorce. And of the other 50%, 90% of those are not happy. So my question to you, Master Del Pei first, and then Rebecca, what are your suggestions, comments about working through those timelines where challenges come and keeping the love and the joy and the intimate factor in place when what Rebecca just mentioned too, of hardships and challenges coming, where we work through those together.
Thank you for that question. I would add up to Becca's comment that you can really focus on non-suffering as a choice. You can focus on resetting your goal to some more positive rather than just resolving. The problem is, if you people have problem, they are so busy solving the problem, not looking at the potential move that is not about problem solving. You cannot consume your life by problem solving, because you will always have crises and problems, not only financially, but relationship, your cancer, or you're impotent, or your infertility. You will always have problems in life. So do not make life as a problem solving scheme. There's a time that you should be moving on from problem solving, so that you will not always be looking for problems to solve. So you need to do a goal setting that you choose not to suffer. So if you choose not to suffer, there must be a life that you don't suffer, by looking at what at the brighter side of life that we need to enjoy now, and not get stuck on things we cannot achieve or not can solve. So I think there should be the negative solutions, like how to neutralize your karma together, healing the karma and so on. You can hire a healer to do that with you if you cannot do it. You can identify lessons to be learned together and work on them as work in progress, and not to get stuck in problem solving. But you, on the side, you need to set how to energize and empower your future together. So you are focusing a lot of your time on deciding and executing the next steps you want for your life. What are your next steps and how do you achieve it? So there's a problem solving side and healing side, and there's the dharmic life, or the life of duty together and towards each other and to a society, that is going to present to you an optimistic point of view that will go into a serving a good cause together. If you cannot have sex anymore because somebody cannot be functional, at least be intimate in the projects you want to do that you did not do because you were busy with your family or your health and so on. So there's a yang aspect or masculine aspect of solving, and there's a one that is more feminine of catering to the next need. On the process, in between the bridging process, you need to be equipping yourself with tools to be able to achieve the positive goals and tools to heal the past. I always say that the speed of recovery should be faster than the speed of degeneration of the relationship. If you focus too much on the prevention side of relationship problem solving, and you're not putting the advancing aspect of relationship, you will get stuck in the present or past. So you should have a formula that the speed of recovery and regaining your trust, regaining your intimacy should be faster than the speed of decay of the relationship. Most problems cannot be solved if the speed of decay is greater than the speed of advancing your relationship. And that you need to do the positive aspect to it and the negation aspect. In between, you have to see yourself as a classmate in the school of life, work in progress. So you don't have to be looking on perfection, but work in progress. Enjoying whatever it is and focusing on what you can do now, not what you're not able to do. That is where you get stuck. So my opinion is there's no one formula really, not one fits all, but you need a life mentor, a life coach, an expert like Becca to guide you with certain things you don't want to see because you are in denial. Most people are getting all this backlash of relationship because they are in denial. They don't want to see the pain because it's painful. You don't want to acknowledge it. There's a time you cannot escape the pain. So even if it's painful, you need to look at it and say, okay, what can I do now? What can we do now? And from there on, you realize that it might give you some pain, but not suffering anymore. Why? Because realize that the pain is just a work in progress. You will soon win over it. And that's my opinion. And I have done a lot of healing on people. And the problem is the speed of decay is stronger than the speed of recovery.
Thank you, Master Del Pe. Yes, I agree with you in what you were saying. It's truly important that people have to see their pain. We all have to heal ourselves so we're able to advance. I don't know, Becca, if you want to comment on top of what Master Del Pe was saying, and I also have a question for you. mostly people that is lonely is asking what can they do? Do they really need a couple to be happy and fulfilled, or they can be they can be just by themselves?
Okay, so I'll combine the two questions and give a synthesized answer from my perspective. Most of us were raised to be victims. And that means not being proactive in life or being reactionary. So the victim is going to be complaining about, woe is me, my parents did this, and I don't have the strength to do that, and I can't do it, blah, blah. And so the first thing for me is take a good, hard look at any habits, any victim habits that you may have, because and don't beat yourself up about it. We were all raised to just take a bunch of shit, but we don't have to. So we can become masters of our destiny. And so for, in regards to the couple going out of the honeymoon phase, well, it's wonderful falling in love. It's fantastic. It's thrilling. It's great. And then there's going to be the day-to-day, which is simply another phase, which has a great richness to it because it's the deepening of the relationship. So when the honeymoon's over, that something else is beginning. But that means pay attention. What else is it? Now what is being required of me? Because the great thing about relationship, Robert Augustus Masters says, relationship is the ashram of the 21st century. Of course, I love that quote because we get to, there's the old ways, have a guru who will help you and guide you. And I mean, it is a fine path. And in relationship, you get someone who's going to get to know all about you, get to see your shadows, and get to point them out to you, and then get to push your buttons. So in terms of the drive toward enlightenment or liberation, wow, being in a relationship is like the fast track, if you see it that way. Or you can turn it into a torture chamber if you want to suffer. And as for the question about people who are alone, well, the thing I love about the tantric practices, and there's so many that are non-sexual, as Master Del Pei pointed out, it's an entire lifestyle. But the aspect of it is a sensual approach to life. It's like, hey, we have 5 senses. How can I enjoy tasting and smelling and feeling and seeing and hearing? Life, I recommend to my clients, when you're depressed, go out in nature and breathe. Just look at a flower, look at a leaf, look at a cloud, a real cloud, not a chemtrail. And because nature has its own, it follows the natural laws, so it will naturally be beautiful. Breathe that in to help unhook the mind from the mind loops of complaining and so forth. And then in terms of sexual practice, tantric practice starts with the self. Because if you don't know about your own energy, how are you going to tangle up with somebody else? Just what Darren summarized earlier is that to learn this integrity that we have within ourselves. And it's a fabulous exploration because we've been given these amazing bodies that are the mixing of the elements coming up from Pachamama and the divine spark coming down from the cosmos, and it's mixed in the cauldron of our bodies. And so we have like a wide latitude of ways to feel. So self-pleasuring and sacred sexuality is a whole gamut. Some people call it masturbation. I don't like that, comes from turbare, to disturb. But so self-pleasuring is this body exploration of what feels good to me. I'm going to use the sense of touch, or I'm going to use the sense of smell. we are infinite beings. The thing about getting bored with a couple or with yourself or getting in a rut, sometimes we have to exercise the yang principle of will and yank ourselves out of whatever rut we're in, whether it's victimhood or complaining or, you know, my partner isn't appealing to me anymore. Have to just haul ourselves out and start again, right? And there's so many tools. So look for help too. If you're not great at self-starting, then look for help, because there is help. And it's an amazing world we're living in. So enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Becca. Master Del Pay, any comments and follow up on what Rebecca just shared?
I think Becca has always the wisdom to share, especially to couples who are already wearing out from each other's connections. It's like a car, you know, when it doesn't start, you cannot just scold the car and kick the car. You need sometimes somebody to push you and jumpstart if you have a manual driven car. Sometimes you need a booster battery. You need a mentor to give you energy to jumpstart until you can run on your own. Or if your alternator is damaged, then you cannot recharge anymore, then you get to have a energizer, a healer that can give you periodically some energy to be able to feel good again about yourself. Because as we grow older also, there are other things that are not functional anymore. So that's nature, you know? You need to be aware of that as not a scourge of life, but as like nature processing yourself. So do not be rejecting what's happening. You just admit it and not in denial and find a solution. There are a lot of solutions right now that are given to humanity. Do not just go for medical solution for Viagra or for testosterone injection. As Becca said, a flower can turn you on. You know, if you imagine the concept of even the lovemaking between butterflies, ants, you know, you can make yourself creative and look at things that is like the connectiveness of nature. You can be affected by the romance of a horse. So you don't have to be too specific of the normal mechanical occidental way of lovemaking that you have 5 minutes and you get orgasmic and then you sleep and snore at the end. There's so much things to do in bed that is not just like reading a book together and then things that you want to learn together before that you did not do because you're so busy in your own career. This is the time. The quarantine time is not lonely. It is predisposed to a lot of avenues by which you can be cuddling, somebody massaging each other's, somebody's massaging your feet while you're listening the book to be read to you, discussing it. Some solutions already in the YouTube, you can talk about it. There are many books that are good for your problem solving. But as I said, and Becca said also, that's a time that you need to yank yourself away from the problem, not to focus too much on the problem. So you need the willpower technique, how to will to become different, how to will out of the stuck relation, how to will to move to the next day without complaining of the past. You need willpower. I have taught a lot of the willpower technique that you can use. Second, you need the love to understand and be patient and have the law of sacrifice. You need to know that marriage is not the wedding. The wedding is 1 day. In India, it's 5 days. So it's good to be wed, but you need to manage the marriage. It's easy to be wed. Yeah, you just have money. To be married, it's like not easy. You have to be a manager. You have to be a crisis manager. You need to be a conflict resolutionist. You need to be an underdog sometimes so that the person will feel better. You need to be a person who tend to be patient. And I would say harmony through tolerance. This is the time you don't have to win the argument. Why should you want always the argument? You are not a lawyer. You're not paying you to argue anyway. Why lose a loved one because of an argument? Yes, better take a lawyer's job. Some people might have a lawyer's job, but when you go home, be the husband. Why bring your lawyer in the house and be debating all the time in terms of what position to use? There's a lot of positions. You can choose it as you want, naturally. And secondly is, this is the time that the love should fertilize the relationship with patience, with understanding, with compassion, with empathy, and so on. But it takes a lot of mind's intelligence to look for the job that can finance your next steps. So you need the love to preserve your relationship. You need the will to yak you out to the future from the past stuck energy. But you need a good mind together to plan. How do you get more money for your next vacation? How do you pay your bills? How do you look at your credit card and look at how to consolidate your debts? How do you look together in the same direction so that you're not always looking at each other's eyes every night? There's a time that looking at each other's eye is the best solution and be in love. But most people who survive do not look at each other's eyes anymore, but they look in the same direction. What can I do together? What can we do together so that we'll be always together? And there's a vision. If there's no vision, marriage will perish, as they say. When there's no mission, you cannot exert that energy to wake up in the morning, let's do this. When you wake up, there should be some common shared goal that both of you are thinking to do together, and not thinking of serving the client in the bank. How can you serve a client and give him lunch and not give a lunch to your wife or your husband? Why do we prosper giving dinner to a client if you're an entrepreneur and forget that you have somebody waiting at home to eat even simple food and not to have to eat out? We forgot the basic. Mastery of any relationship is mastery of the basics. Use willpower, move to the future. Finish what you start together. Use love, be sacrificial, be patient, be empathic, be compassionate, be understanding. Use the mind. Plan together, share goals so that you can move together to the next step, rather than emotions bring you to the past memories. So I think that's my way of looking at things.
I'd just like to add, thank you, Master Del Pey, a little caveat. If you are seeing that your relationship is abusive, if it's dangerous to your body or your mental health, or maybe the relationship has run its course, then open that conversation too. We're of course focusing on how to, all the building and maintenance and enjoyment aspects of relationship. And I just want to add that little caveat. Sometimes there's a time when when two people need to part ways. So, keep your eyes open for that too.
I think I agree with Becca. Not all relationships are made in heaven, okay? There are some that's made in hell, but they were made in heaven as a made in China golden hue at first, but inside is a darkness. There's a karma in relationship. You have to understand, without understanding the principle of karma, people always expect the so-called prototype that you should be married, have children, have grandchildren, and you should be happy ever after. That's what all mothers say. Formula of marriage, a formula of happiness. Grow, get educated, get married, have children, grandchildren, have a good house. And how come most people are following the mother's recommendation and nobody ends happy all the time? There must be something in between that provokes the relationship to be sour or acidic. That is the principle of karma. There's always a karma from the past lives, if you believe in past life, that is brought in tandem with the relationship that does come out frequently. And these sometimes are the tests of time that you cannot avoid. So you do not expect that marriage should be always in a smooth sailing and impeccable ways. There are many things that will come along the way, stumbling blocks. There are landslides of relationship. There's a tsunami of problems. There is the bankruptcy of your finances. It has to be managed if you want to stay together. That's why you have to be looking in the same direction, not anymore together on eye to eye. And it's really about looking that there's a karma that comes positively, enjoying each other's intimacy, and also on problem-solving side. There's a love karma that governs relationship, and that is the most difficult to understand. And the Western psychology do not factor that in their counseling. And they don't even think that nothing in this life should be questioned about, because you deserve good life when you're a good karma. Punishment when you're supposed to be working out your lesson. In this life, nothing is undeserved, good and bad.
Thank you, Master Del Pey and Rebecca, once again. Very enlightening, very enjoyable. My next question is for you, Master Del Pey. Regarding sexual alchemy and divine intimacy, the juicier question is, how important are the sexual positions in achieving sexual alchemy and divine intimacy from like the science perspective, the tantric perspective, and the use of the sex energy for higher purposes?
Now we're talking.
Finally.
I think Becca can also talk about this tantric position, but I think most of the people's issue is they are not open enough to admit that they have weaknesses, and they pretend that nothing is wrong. So if you do not communicate and converse about what you're feeling and your inhibitions and others, and you do not go for healing, there's a time that you feel like you're faking your orgasm. Many women, and I admit because they are like my clients, they really fake orgasm. They can be the loudest shout in the neighborhood, but internally they are not happy because they're faking orgasm. So you need to communicate your own feelings about your expectations and also your inhibitions, your compulsions, anything. You need to lay out your SWOT analysis, your strength, your weaknesses, your opportunities to experience, and your threats. There are more threats in people that bring a lot of insecurity, lack of trust, even to themselves. They do not trust themselves in sex because either they have a smaller size organ or their vagina was not lubricated well, and so on. So if they do not talk about it, they will be hiding it instead of talking about it and how to improve the position or lubrication or anything. They will end up married for 30 years and never had the real intimacy because they are trying to defend their own positioning of defense. So conversation, laying out your cards from the beginning is better than hiding for 20 years and tell them that, you know, in 20 years, I've been faking my orgasm. Now, that will be a dispute for a lifetime. You're telling a lie to me for 20 years? That will be like a resentment forever. So I think, aside from position, you need to position the conversation to make sure that your weaknesses and strengths should be analyzed, the SWOT analysis, and the threats that come from the weaknesses, not only from the sex organ, from the emotional perspective, from the mental blockages, from the upbringing of conservative families that thinks that sex is dirty and they have to be guilty about it. And then another thing is some people need to open up the belief that the other person should help. Not the men usually are machos. They think they should be doing all the job and then the woman should be just receiving. That's an obsolete thing. Maybe the woman is better. So just say, hey, I salute your femininity and God is within me and within you. Can you help the God within me to perform? Why should always the God and the goddesses not converse? The feminine sometimes are better in sex because they can prolong more their arousal and not go for a pre-ejaculation states. They can also distribute their energy in their bodies so they can feel the orgasm in the whole system. And they can teach you. If you're not sensitive, you're not a clairsentient lover, you can learn how do you feel that you're crying when you're having orgasm. Is that cry of joy or cry of a fake cry? So some women cry after they have orgasm, and the man said, what's wrong with you? You're crying. Well, he's in ecstasy, man. So don't be a macho, man. Don't be a macho. You have to humble down saying, I'm not a macho anymore. I like to see the secrets of your femininity. What do you enjoy doing? How can I please you more? Don't be afraid to ask that. What else can I do that I have not done for 20 years that now you're asking me to do for you, which will satisfy you for another 20 years? We need to open the dialogue and conversation and be an attentive but collaborative listening to listen to what they're saying. They are not criticizing you, they are giving you feedback. So you have first to establish that. Secondly is if you have an incompatibility of sexual organs, like a man is have a short tool and the woman has a wide yoni or vagina, there's a problem from both. But there are positions which you can experience that they're almost matching whatever your size potential. You can match to a position. I have them in my book. I cannot demonstrate because I'm not naked right now, so I'm just joking. Sex is supposed to be a funny game, not make it too serious. Our Western civilization had made it so serious, that's why everybody's afraid of sex, even in India. That in India, when I test sexual alchemy, everybody's like crossing their arms and swallowing their saliva and looking at the ground. And I said, why do you do that? Because you feel so, yeah, and then they feel so guilty about it. They'd rather do it than to talk about it. That's why they have more Indian population now, because they rather do it. So if you do not talk it out, you will act it out, and sometimes in the wrong way. So I believe the sexual positions are very important to bring compatibility of incompatibly designed sex organs. There are times that the man can be on top, the women can be on top, the man can be on the side, depends on what you want to do. If your tool is shorter and they have longer canal, there are two times that you can do some other positions that it looks like they're touching the most pleasurable point without having to have a long penis, for example. So if you look at the drawing, there are some organs that are stimulated in the vagina and the penis, and there's a matching technique that when there's a position that can connect the heart to heart, kidney to kidney meridian, organ meridian, you will be able to have the organs stimulated, not just the clitoris or not only the G-spot. There's, like I have seen my book, there's a position where you can touch the different organs and as if you're enhancing the metabolic process of the organs, because the penis, for example, has a certain acupuncture points where you can stimulate the kidney, this and that. In the vagina, there's also a point where you stimulate the kidney, this and that. So if a woman is always doing like the clitoral masturbation, for example, that overworks the kidneys. In that aspect is connected to the kidney meridian, which stimulates the kidney. So women with a lot of kidney problems, sometimes they have overdone their masturbation in one spot. Same with men. So you need to be able to see the anatomy of the physical organ, and there's an energy anatomy of the chakra and the kundalini, which stimulates the pleasure elementals. That is one of my breakthrough in this book. I have drawn the elementals of pleasure, that even you have a big tool, if you don't have sexual pleasure elemental, the man cannot please the woman entirely as even a small tool with a lot of pleasure entities. So there are many energies, I think you can see this drawing here, that has a life cycle from arousal to explosive and implosive orgasm. It's like a firework to that entity that is microscopic, but they are energizing you in terms of pleasure. See, if you can discover how to stimulate the pleasure elementals by certain technique of breathing, visualization, and so on, you can have a very explosive and implosive orgasm with or without the best tools. So that is my take on this. So positions are very important, but knowing the anatomy by which you can stimulate the organs for health reasons and also the pleasure elementals is as important as a long foreplay or a Viagra or a sex tool or anything you want to talk about.
Thank you, Master Del Pe. That was a really great explanation. And yes, I have here the book. You have to check the book if you want it. It's also in Spanish about what he was talking about, how many points touch each other. And for me, that was really discovery when I was checking this information from your workshops and the book, that we have so many points and we can have a heart-to-heart connection with our partner in the intimacy because of the meridians and the points that touch each other. So I think that's a great information people can discover in this book and in your workshop.
And may I insert, Beatriz, that's why if you have a habit of masturbating or sexual pleasing, do not just use one position, also one style. There are things you can start, like Becca saying, you touch your body. Okay, those who are not sensitive, you can touch a lot the skin and arouse yourself by the knowledge of the surface area of pleasure, not only the genitals. But there are parts of the penis, for example, that when you, in men, masturbate because you don't have a partner, there are places that you need to stimulate that point for the organic stimulation in your body. At least you have attained two. Stimulation of organs and stimulation of your sex organ. And you have two things, health and having fun. So same with women. There's a certain thing you can do to stimulate organs through the vaginal canal. Not only the G-spot or the clitoris. There are certain spots where you stimulate the heart meridian, the liver meridian, the kidney meridian, and so on. So it's for health reasons. At least you have an excuse that I'm stimulating my liver. And then I end up with a happy ending. Okay, good.
Okay, and I was looking forward to Becca. Can you color that? So many to share there. So much to share. By the way, we're over 15 minutes, people, and I have like 20 more questions. So I don't know what we're going to do. But at least you can answer, Becca, now, and let's see how much time do you have.
Maybe we'll have a part 2.
Maybe we have to have a part 2 or something.
Yeah, I think Becca, we can have a part 2.
Yeah.
And maybe why don't we have a online retreat with Becca and me and Beatrice, and maybe talk more about how to achieve these things rather than the idea of this concept, because having an idea does not make you blissful. It might make you excited that you have something to talk about, but at the end, as Benjamin said, well done is better than well said. We need to have an action plan to be able to execute these ideas, because talking about them does not enlighten you. It might arouse you by knowing that there's something that you can do, but at the end of the day, how do you affect the change that's actionable, so that by the time you mature in a month in your sexual experiences, that you can say that, wow, it really works. Let me spread the good news, and let's increase the tribe that is enlightened in sexuality. So maybe, Becca, if you agree, maybe we can formulate a plan and
That
work
sounds
together
like
and have an online retreat. Of course, you have a prerogative where you're naked attending the class or not. We will switch off your video in the Zoom. and maybe we can play together in terms of techniques, discussions. We can heal the sexual blockages of life and really enjoy. The speed of recovery should be faster than the speed of decay. Especially as we age, we have less and less chances, you know?
I love the idea. I'm open to the idea, because sexual healing will, you know, in my opinion, liberate the world. So
yeah, I think we should include Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, the WHO heads, so that they will see the creative perspective on the pandemic rather than the horrifying aspect of being vaccinated and being tracked where you are and so on. Instead of social distancing, we can have an online sex course and enjoy, you know, life ahead.
Exactly. So about sexual positions, I'll be brief since we're over time. You know, yoga, again, I'm looking at Hindu Tantra, was one of the reasons to formulate these yogic positions was so you could try all these different ways of connecting and sharing and merging the bodies. And it's just like yoga for meditation, so you can hold the posture, right? Because lovemaking can go on for hours and hours. Just, and you have to be strong enough to do that. So really the first thing to be able to perform the way you want to or enjoy what you want to do is look at your health. You know, are you breathing? Are you exercising? What kind of food are you bringing into your body temple? These are all the groundwork that everyone can do, is to feel better in your body. So that means taking care of oneself. And one other comment I'll make is, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was someone pointed out that in terms of sacred sexuality in different tantric traditions, the goal is to not even have to think, what position am I going to get into, or what do I want to do? It's just to build the energy to a point where you just start, you know, into this flow together, and you'll go through different positions, and but you're riding the energy. The energy is taking you because you've stoked it together, and then now the synergy of it has its own energy, its own identity, and then surrendering into that, of the merging of the energies, then you're building this entirely new journey that you get to go on that doesn't involve the mind at all. It's the fun.
Yeah.
It's half the fun.
I think I agree. Natural ways are better, but some people need really mentoring because they're so blocked to see their natural ways. So unnatural ways happen when you don't have the creativity to explore. you are inhibited because of own religious beliefs, or your upbringing has been so restrictive that you still have to heal those things. That guilt, that restrictive, inhibitive behavior of conservative Western style. Even in the Oriental philosophy, we have thrived in the Oriental philosophy in the ancient times, but now we are copying the Western models. And so we are failing also in the East because we are now adapting the very so-called scientific medicine aspect of sexuality, which otherwise all doctors will be so happy by now if it's so scientific. There's an art to it and there's a science to it. You need to explore both.
Yeah. Yes.
And there are 8 types of lovers. So not all people will be.
To ask about that, Master Del Fe.
Huh? Okay, what's the question?
Yeah, it was the question was about the 8 type of lovers. So you just read my mind. Can you please tell us about that, please?
Well, I always teach these classes, the 8 types of human design. And aside from there are 8 types of husbands, a lot of them do not bring home the money anymore. So they say there are 2 types. Somebody who brings the money, somebody who doesn't bring money. No, that's more the Western concept. There are 8 types of lovers and there are 8 types of pleasing them, and even infinite way of pleasing them. So if you do not study the strength, the weakness of each type, you will be expecting everyone to be a Madonna dancing around you, and they don't want to dance because they are Einstein lovers. They are very stiff in the hips. So you're going to expect, that's why Becca was right, that if you do Hatha Yoga or asanas and all this yoga posture is to make you more flexible to be able to do more difficult positions. Like, you know, raising your legs on here while you're having sex. That is more acrobatic, but anyway, you don't have to go there. Those are not practical anymore. What I'm saying is there's a time to understand the weakness of each other and not push them on the weakness. That's why they fake orgasm, because you are trying to expect them on things they cannot deliver. They cannot be lubricated so easily. So why expect a fast delivery, you know? Either you have a KY jelly or do some olive oil or anything, but do not criticize them and attack them on their weakness point. So do not attack the weakest points of your partner. Focus on their strength and from there lubricate the relationship. Another thing is that the Mother Teresa types will not always start with sex like the George Bush, that they bum, 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 and done. The George Bush are like warriors, they're very fast. The Mother Teresa needs more nurturing. They need more talking. You need the whispers. They need clairaudient sensitivity. The George Bush is more tactile. Like they said, in the woman's body, all the pleasure points are everywhere, aside from the 4 pleasure points in the mind and the brain. In men, there's always all of them, and just in the penis, all the acupuncture points there. But women, you can touch them here and they say, ah, there's that. And men, they touch them here, said, why are you touching me? Touch me directly there. So the acupuncture points of pleasure in men is only in that small area. The women, they can be pleased on the ears, and the shoulder, on rubbing their feet, touching about their mother's birthday. That will stimulate them. In men, they have a shorter memory and they have only a shorter place to stimulate. So men, you need to be able to copy the feminine energy. They have all the ingredients, I tell you. The women have more flexibility of many things. So men have to learn from the women. The gods has to learn from the goddesses. Of course, the goddesses have to also learn from the gods. So it has to be really an interplay of not who's who, really. How can we do it together? Not only looking at each other's eye, but looking towards each other and knowing that there is a unity to diversity. There's so much diversity in lovemaking and relationships that at the end, you need to discover every day the differences and work it out. It's not gonna be 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. It's a lifetime, a way of life of discovery. You have to be in a discovery mode, and then the pleasure is always unpredictable. And that is where romance and intimacy can happen.
And I'd just like to add on to that, in a lot of tantric traditions, you honor the goddess first. Now, what does that mean? And why would they say that? It's about the Shakti, the Kundalini, with the idea that if you look at the arousal, the chart of arousal, it's like, for men, it's like, okay, zip, I'm aroused. For women, it's you know, gradually bringing the energy up. So by putting the goddess first, so to speak, means that tending to the woman's slower rising to a boiling point, because also she's maybe slower getting up, but then she can do valley orgasm and bring the partner into that, where so first is allowing time for the woman's arousal by all the pleasurable foreplay activities you can do. There's so many ways to please. And then the man can come online, but by honoring the goddess first, the feminine energy slow to rise. It's a delicious journey. It's not a race to the finish. So that's some wisdom from the tantric tradition.
Yeah, I agree with that, Becca. In most cases, the women's energy is predominantly a guiding thing, and the man would be more flowing. It's like a tango. The women has to be pleased in the dance. It's not the man's really job. But in the Gen Z, I have been discovering a lot of my clients, the problem now is the women are faster because the Gen Z are more educated and many things, they are more vulgar in their ways. I don't know, in the post-pandemic generation, maybe they need a thermometer to first see what's your temperature now. Use alcohol. They have, imagine having lovemaking with the mask. Can I? So I think there will be a revolution now on sexuality, that we now incorporate that fear of touching, social distancing. The fear of intimacy probably is being negated by our so-called waiting for the vaccine ideas. So we have to be careful not to be affected by our natural ways from the past, and not to be affected by our geopolitical problems of pandemic and all the mechanical ways of solving things.
Thank you, Master Del Pe and Becca. We are almost half hour over time, but nobody has complained. Everyone is silent. I think the ears are bigger now, the hearts are bigger too. I mean, we have so many other questions for you guys about the Kundalini, about how to heal issues, mystical fire, entities, sexual entities. What is the path of longevity and enlightenment? So I'm looking forward that we can also continue and do a part 2 one moment. I would like also, if you want to give at least to this audience closing comments about what would you recommend to everyone, to them, to continue on this path of sexual growth, expansion, and enlightenment. And that's what I can say. What do you want to say before?
That sounds good. Whatever you guys feel inspired to share, let the spirit move to send us off with a great anticipation for round 2.
So we have a question here from the audience that I don't know if you want to address shortly, but it has to do about frigidity. I think it's related to what you were saying too. And, closing comments for now. Please, Becca, go ahead.
With frigidity, probably we need to look at early trauma. So that would involve a shadow process to get to why there's no feeling there. It's probably a protection mechanism, which, as far as I'm concerned, now's the time for healing. So whatever anyone's sexual capacities are, getting clear ourselves and looking to our healing. And probably that's going to involve looking for I would look for a therapist who does somatic work, and maybe even, first diving in to see why the layers of protection have to be there. Probably very good reasons why you would install genital armoring, for example. There's probably good reasons. And pulling up the courage to say, yeah, I want to find out what that is and heal that. And then begin the journey of first healing the psychological and then the physical. In the physical, there are G-spot therapists, for example, or trauma therapists who will help with the dismantling of genital armoring. But first, the trauma must be released from the body. And so that would be the first answer I would come to on that. It's a multi-layered situation. Master Del Page.
I agree with Becca. I think there's a lot of emotional component of the healing. So that said, there's a healing technique that we do for a lot of that frigidity and impotence that are more natural healings. There are people also who needs to stimulate their G-spot so that they can really release some of the blockage there. So for women, you have to locate your G-spot and massage them frequently, and not feeling guilty, because some people have so much remorse and guilt in their past lives that they have the vow of celibacy in their monk's life, nun's life, whatever life they had, that they started to suppress that energy to have pleasure. And they brought this program in this life. So I have to dismantle their vow of celibacy and vow of non-sex in their past lives as ascetics. So that is one. Secondly is to heal some traumatic experience that shuts off the sex energy because they were molested, they were abused, they were raped, or even their past life, they were killed in the name of sex. So that one has to be healed in the past life. Third is the sex energy is too underactive. So if you look at the sex chakra, you can scan it. I can look at a person's sex and if they are really performing well or not, or they're very depleted. Some people are very depleted sexually because they have overused the sexual energy in their past life, that this life they are deprived. Whatever you have misused, you are deprived in each life. So if you have so much fun in your past life and you overuse that sexual energy, you had done so much miscarriage and abortion, there's a punishment of the karmic law that in this life, you cannot be entitled to have that kind of reproductive functionality. So that's also a big deal. It's not easy to heal that kind of karma. That's because I heal a lot of these. Secondly is your sex chakra can be glued by entities that does not allow them to expand bigger than a certain size. So there's certain curse that can be done by another person whom you abandoned, and they curse you so much that their mission is just to make you not experience anymore any orgasm or any kind of sensitivity in sex organs. So that is like depossession. That is exorcism technique that we do to remove the curse. The curse sometimes can last for many lives, especially if a family hired a shaman or an elder that they did it to you, and it's like an entity being like an octopus clutching on the sex chakra. And then now another thing is there are two nerves that connects to the genitals. If they're hit on the back by trauma or by accidents, they get switched off, or they are so diminished in electrical impulse that you cannot go to a certain level of arousal because it's switched off, because it's like an electrical wire that capacity has been diminished and kinked, and there's no more complete arousal, electrical pulse from the limbic system brain down to the genital via the back. And so if that is traumatized or it has been switched off, you can hardly go to arousal of more than 30%. You cannot achieve orgasm. That anorgasmia is like a disorder because of the nerve system. Another thing is the astral sex. There are three chakras or energies of the sex: the prana, or etheric, emotional, and mental. When I look at frigid women, their emotional chakra and the sex is disconnected. It's not engaged. It's the pleasure of the emotional sexual chakra that it connects to the limbic system, emotional brain that sends pleasure or pain. That is disconnected. That's why there's no register pleasure to the brain, and the emotional brain is like not connected signal. So the person cannot, even how much you stimulate the clitoris or the G-spot, they will not go to more than 30%. It's more physical, and then it's more of lack of signals. And one of the last is when people have a cruelty karma. When people have been cruel in their present life or past life, they are not entitled to have pleasure. So the karma of pleasure and pain, those who inflicted pain in the past life or this life cannot also be allowed to have harvest of pleasure. If you do a lot of cruelty and pain, not only to humanity, but animals or the worlds, damaging the earth. There's a certain karma of not having to have pleasure because of inflicting pain on others. So the karma of pain and pleasure are related in relationships. There are more things like if you are born of a certain cosmic and constellation signal, and that constellation switch off the fertility aspect, that pleasure aspect, then you cannot do it as a mirror of that bigger entity, macrocosmically and microcosmic karma connection. And the last is, if you cannot produce entities of pleasure, no matter what you do to genitals, no matter how engorged the blood supply, you will not have that eruption or explosive and implosive aspect of orgasm, because there are no firing pins. When I look at freaks, they don't have that entity. They don't have that elemental build up. That's why they switch off. And I think there are more causes, but this is as far as what I put in my book.
Thank you, Master Del Pe, and also Becca, thank you. Again, we are almost over time. I think we have to do another specific talk about for sure, the things people can heal about their sexual life. And thank you so much for your wisdom. We are with Darren here. You want to include something, Darren, you want to tell them?
Just want to say thank you both for being here. I think it's super special to have bringing you guys together, Master Del Pe and Becca, who put a good chunk of your life into studying these topics to share with humanity. So thank you for coming. I'm looking forward to round 2 and taking this further. We have both of your any closing comments you want to make as well?
Yeah, I would like also Becca and Master Del Pe to make any closure suggestions to our audience, because this is going to go all over the world. Here in Ecuador, in Vilcabamba, it's going to go to the US, it's going to go to different places. And I'm sure people are going to want a round 2 or an online retreat for sure. What can you say, Master?
May I suggest, Beatrice and Darren and Becca, if you can share this now to 2 or 3 people, eventually it will duplicate right now. If anyone can be sharing to as many people now, whatever you have right now, that will be a warranty for us to come back, because I think Becca and me will deserve an audience that will listen to more good news about sexuality and not pandemic anymore. We are tired on COVID-19. Let's shift the channel to have a longer life with sexual energy and having fun at the same time and get healed. There's not only the healing of sexuality, healing of emotions is only when you hear good news, not always bad news. So if you can share now this show right now to us, 2 or 3 people, that will multiply us as a tribe to listen next time. So that is probably my request to all of you as a gesture to reciprocate whatever we'll see next time. What do you think, Becca?
Absolutely. Spread the good news, because I guess my final comment would be, I feel that I encourage everyone to open your hearts to the possibility that this is a big chance for humanity, and we're humanity. So we can become our best selves. We can be happy and exuberant with life, because if there's a new earth coming, it's only going to come through us. So by healing our wounds, by clearing out the shadows, by focusing on what's beautiful, by allowing ourselves to love and to enjoy pleasure, these are revolutionary acts. So I invite everyone to join this revolution.
Thank you. And Beatrice, I would like to invite people to visit our website, masterdelpe.com, and look at the heal plan, because if you are private, I cannot answer your issue here. I can scan your chakra if you want, but it's good to have more private consultation. We have a free 30 minutes consultation for your problems in private, in confidentiality, because sometimes you are so inhibited that you can even talk about penis or vagina or clitoris in your words. So that is a problem, because you will die without even talking about the penis or clitoris or the vagina. You need to get healed. So you get a consultant free, and you can go to our weedglobal.com, weed, W-I-I-D, global.com and /heal plan to get a free consultation. And I'd like to award people today to go to my website And hey, have a free download of my Goodwill meditation to harmonize your relationship with the people you choose. It's called the Meditation on Goodwill, or Goodwill Meditation. I would like to award everyone who participated today a free download. Go to my website, you meditate with that energy, and you can also heal yourself so that you can heal others. And as Becca said, let's spread the good news and celebrate life every day. You never know when you're gonna die. That's one thing that we all are the same. We are all dying. It's just a matter of when, how, with whom, and how do we exit this life? Are we happy exiting? Are we so sad? Are we suffering? There's a choice, and this is the time to choose. Do not focus on COVID-19 only. Focus on yourself, and let's live again and regain back the life we deserve.
Thank you, Master Del Pe. I wrote in the chat, everyone here can see withglobal.com. You can also find Becca's webpage, Venus and Her Lover. You can find the webpage, masterdelpe.com, if you go to this chat. And as many people subscribe it here, you can receive the recording of this interview. So once you receive it, you can just spread the good news and share it out, because we want everyone, we want the world to see these amazing books that I have here about sexual alchemy, divine intimacy, longevity, Venus and Her Lover, volume 1, volume 2, maybe volume 3 soon. And thank you so much for your generosity of your time. I know you both are super, super busy. And what else, Aaron, we have to say?
Yeah, last thing, just a little inspiration is Becca's here in Vilcabamba, where we are, and Master Del Pe is in the Philippines, and we're both kind of forging the new paradigm in our special places. So there's a portal connection, a soul family connection between us here that's growing, and we're going to need micro communities on each continent that are all connected. So we already have many good connections going on with you there in the Philippines, Master Del Pe, and Becca and us are here in Vilcabamba. I look forward to more interactions and sharing notes as we do our small part to be a little lighthouse on planet Earth as we go through these times of great transformation.
Becca, any final words?
No, that's it. Let's do it.
And thank you, Beatriz. Thank you, Darren, for doing the great job of collecting people. Let's increase our tribe to be more enlightened and live happily and live longer. And we have the choice. Today is the choice. Do not postpone it. And I'd like you to really distribute this video and let people really listen to a free-spirited talk about sexuality in its holistic way. And let's really make this even viral, and let's send it to as many politicians as possible, to the billionaires. They need to share their wealth, and we should not suffer because of their wealth hoarding. This is the time. Sex is a universal principle. It's an art and science. We should really enjoy it. This is God's gift.
Thank you, Master, again. So we are kind of closing for today, but stay tuned, please, everyone. You will receive the recording. You can download the Goodwill Meditation. Step 1 onto also nice sexuality and good intimacy, and also good relationships with other people. And thank you, everyone else.
Beatriz, they can put love gift as a code, and this will not be paid. Love gift from masterdelpe.com.
Okay, so I'm going to write here, and remember that the code to download this meditation, Goodwill Meditation, by the way, I can really recommend it, is love gift.
Not sex gift. That's next time.
Okay,
it will
that's
do
the
the
next one. Okay, so thank you, everyone, again. We are closing.
My closing comments: keep the big picture burning brightly. Many blessings.
And here's
Yes,
a candle for all of us. Please remember your fire within, and your heart, and your soul. And also remember the coziness with your partner, so you can really enjoy life. Have fun.
Ciao, ciao, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.